Player Gene 78904. If you want to get all technical, that is the daily fantasy handle. And hopefully, possibly, maybe takes down some American dollars in some contests tonight. This is the start of 2+ hours of nonstop MLB DFS conversation, taking y'all straight up the lock. We handed off to the Crunch Time crew around 6:15 or so. You got Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth holding it down. We're going to need him tonight for sure. We always need him, but we especially need him tonight because there are several games that look especially murky. I'll go ahead and drop that the weather page there in chat. What's up, chat? Everybody out there, kindly please consider hitting that like button. Do subscribe and turn on those notifications. Not only do you hit the like button just because you want to be kind, but I believe possibly maybe we're going to get some of Tim's taters. Not just Tim's taters, but TJ's words, of course, one of the greatest DFS players in all of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. He has Spidey on layaway. Spidey, always available. So Spidey bombs for sure are going to be a thing that drive the show. TJ, welcome. You got the memo. We all got the memo. Team Blue today. How are things in your world up there in America's top hat?
Doing pretty well. Things are nice and warm right now. It's like 90+ degrees here, which I feel like everybody's getting a heat wave. So compared to the Arizonas and places of the world, that's absolutely nothing right now. But I think we're probably at like the 92, 93 range. So pretty warm for here. It's been nice, enjoying a lot of outdoor time, doing a lot of barbecuing, and having a few home run bets that are hitting. So ready to dive into the slates. I did the morning grind with Keith already. He's hopping over on crunch time after us, but feel like I already got a pretty good idea of this slate, and I'm ready to dive into it.
Yeah, I should have mentioned you get Roth, of course, for crunch time, but obviously answering your baseball questions, you get Dave Potts. Cheeseisgood. I think it's Dave Potts as well as Keith Eyster Ice. They'll be answering your questions and breaking on the slate and going around the horn and doing all those things. A little bit more structured show as far as crunch time as we close and unlock this one, more of a free-flowing conversation. With that, we got Tasteful Tides, Tim, the lover of fun. It's it's a Tuesday.
Did you have fun on your birthday?
I lost a lot of American dollars. My computer crashed on the show. It wasn't good. It wasn't a good birthday, but whatever.
What?
We'll see.
I mean,
we had a bad day in the DFS street, so it wasn't good. Yeah.
Yeah.
My Fanduel account got locked on me, and I had dummy lineups in there. So on DK, it stunk too. Even the lineups that I got to try on, I didn't do very well. But
yeah. FanDuel currently thinks I'm in a different state, so I feel your pain on that.
Yeah.
Hopefully that can get resolved in the next 2 hours. I'm not sure, but we shall see.
They're still trying to figure out if I'm human or not, and I've fooled people for so long. But FanDuel, they're on to me. I don't know. We keep trying that. We'll see if we can figure it out. But yeah, tonight's a fun slate. I'm curious to have the conversation because. Just like yesterday's slate, Tim, I think tonight is pretty wide open. And again, I think on a reference that I should mention, I dropped it in the chat. Philadelphia, Orange, that's not on this main slate. That's at 6:40, so we don't really care about that for our purposes. But Washington, which historically does goofy things as far as weather, it's orange-yellow. Straight yellow in New York, the Battle of New York tonight. Got Battle of New York and Battle of Chicago on this slate. And then the Atlanta Braves, the team, not surprisingly, with the highest total on the board, locked in for 9, assuming weather permits, against Boston. Pavetta theoretically comes in at some point. Who knows how long he goes, but the Braves are just the Braves, and they have close to a 6 total. Otherwise, there's like a couple teams that have like 5.1 or 5.2 as far as totals, but not a lot really jumping off the page. It's like, wow, you got to have this offense. And then there's 5 pitchers that look really good, but I'm having a hard time separating them. Tim, what do you have here as far as your general assessment of this slate? Because it's I think it's a lot of stuff that's close. A lot of things are close, and there's a lot of decision points.
I really like slates like this just because there's not really like condensed chalk in the pitching side or the bats. So I feel like I really have the freedom to play whoever I want. If I was like a GPP player, like if I was like a 150 maxer, I could spread out really however much I want, or I could get overweight easily on stacks if I really, really like them, have strong convictions about a stack. I can get overweight them very, very easily. So these are my favorite types of slates by far, whether you're playing cash or 150. So it's gonna be interesting to break this one down.
What are you playing tonight? What's the strategy? What's the plan? I know you like to dabble in those cash streets, You tend to make like
Yep.
one main lineup or like 3-entry max, single entry contests. Have you settled out?
I'm probably gonna play maybe like, I don't know. I'm gonna definitely play my single entry team, and then I'm gonna probably play like maybe 4 or 5 in that 111.
I love that contest. Yeah.
Just to do something different, but that's going to be just about it for me. And then I'm just going to make one primary team on FanDuel if they let me in. We have that we've got that RotoGrinders single entry series going, the $5 and the $100. So that's a really good contest. So I'm hoping that I can at least get in that in the $100 one.
Yeah, not sure if they sold out yesterday. I know yesterday in crunch time it was close to 90% full. I heard Dave Potts mention that. And yeah, you definitely want to get in the RotoGrinders single entry series. Just added value added to it already. What I like is the best contest over there in FanDuel. Myself and yourself, we very much agree that single entry contests are, the first places we tend to gravitate to, and you get that extra added value. And if you missed yesterday, it's kind of a bummer, but I believe it still takes your top 5 scores. So theoretically, yesterday would just be a 0. And you're not necessarily behind. You just get one less.
So how does that work? How does that work, Dean? I don't. Is it they take your top 5 scores, and if you finish first, what do you get? Is it a live final seat?
No, it's cumulative. So it's a cumulative score of your top 5 scores and your bottom 2. So it goes Monday through Sunday, unless this has changed. But this is the way it's always been historically.
Yeah.
And I believe this is like $30,000 as far as a pool, and like you get first place, second place, third place, and you just get additional money. I know they've had other contests. I don't know if it was RotoGrinders single entry series, but they've had other stuff where it would be like live seat stuff. And I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't have like a read in front of me or anything, but my understanding is I'm fairly certain it's just like the top 5. They take your top 5 scores. Whoever finishes first in a separate contest that like RG is kind of tallying, and it's on somewhere on the RotoGrinders site, which I don't know where to find it right now on the fly. If TJ can jump in and clarify if he has anything to add to that, by all means, go for it. I see producer Devin hanging out in chat as well. But that's the way it's always been. So, like, it's just added value. Like, you're already in these single entry contests as is. And if you happen to have a really, really strong week and you have 5 really good scores, cumulatively, you're number 1 amongst everybody else that participated. You get a nice chunk, or even like it pays out 1 through 10 or 20, whatever it is.
So. Yeah, DraftKings sometimes has those types of series too, where they have like the $200, $100, $50, $20 kind of divisions, and then they'll add your scores together for the week and add some extra money in there. Those are a lot of fun. So I'm glad that you clarified that.
Yeah, I would like to play in that as well, but unfortunately, as of right now, it does not appear. I'm still figuring out how to log into my accounts, but we'll make it work soon enough. Shout out to Andy Means in the chat. TJ must have knew. He must have known that Andy was going to pop his head in, because TJ rocking his Duke shirt, and he's like a legit Duke fan too, for what it's worth. It's not just like somebody slept over one night and left the shirt on the floor. We had the conversation pre-show, so you're kissing up to Andy without even knowing it there with the Duke paraphernalia. TJ, do you have any attack? Your plan has it been settled as far as tonight's slate? We run on 150. We focusing on single entry. We doing both, doing cash. What is the game plan as far as the lineups we're making tonight?
So today is actually the very last day with the dog that I'm fostering. He's getting adopted, and at about 30 minutes after we're off the show, right at lock, he has a vet appointment, so we're taking him there to get his last vaccine, and then the people are picking him up to get their new dog. And so I'm only playing one lineup, and then I got a bunch of home run bets in because I figured like I'm not going to be able to be mixing and matching and stuff after the show. So just get that one lineup in, and then the home run bets that are already in there. I do have to, I feel like, make some adjustments. Maybe I can not make some adjustments, but I feel like I got to do a whole nother round of bets and parlays now, because the Atlanta and Red Sox game wasn't on my site earlier. It just, like, because of the opener situation, they just decided they were going to leave it and figure stuff out. And so it's finally on there. And Matt Olson is plus 410 to hit a home run. And so I feel like I need to just redo all my stuff and put Matt Olson in there. But I guess it might not play. We got to wait and see what Roth says on that one anyway. So that might just be a waste of time.
Officially, it's orange. Roth usually updates around 5:30 or so in his article. He'll update here verbally, give an even more update as far as what's going on, the situation there in Boston around 6:15, 6:20. And of course, every so often, periodically, as things change, as we close and unlock, he will give you an update when it comes to Boston. And of course, Boston, Atlanta, one of the more important games on the slate with those Braves, just who absolutely mash. Kike Hernandez apparently was traded to the Dodgers. I'm seeing back to the Dodgers. Good for him. I'm excited because one of my favorite favorite sneaky players in the league is Joey Wiemer, and he's batting fifth today. And I like Milwaukee, and
I saw that, and I knew you would just love that Wiemer was batting fifth today.
Yeah, I think he got pinch hit for the other day, which is kind of annoying, or maybe pinch ran for. I think it was pinch hit, but that was like ninth inning, and they needed somebody to get on base, like a 3-2 score. But he's got a nice power speed combination, and one of my stands I'm taking today, we'll get into it, is picking on Andrew Abbott, who's been spectacular this year, but incredibly, just crazy, crazy lucky from BABIP perspective, from left on base percentage, from his homer and the fly ball stuff. He unleashes the most fly balls on the slate. So, yeah, I'm very excited for Wiemer. And I believe, if you care, BBP, whatever, I believe he got him earlier in the season, too. They haven't faced each other much. Obviously, they're obviously both guys that just – this is their first year, at least Abbott. Wiemer maybe was on a cup of coffee last season. All right, TJ, give me your thoughts as far as the overview on this slate. Are you in agreement as far as it's there's a lot of options, a lot of different routes, and a lot you can justify when it comes to not just pitching. I think there's about 4 or 5 pitchers that I really, really like, and it drops off pretty quickly. I don't really like a cheapie. I'd love to hear a cheapie if you're interested, unless you call Cobb a cheapie, but that's like the super, super chalky SP2 on DK. We'll dig into it, and then just in general, as far as the slate, TJ, you think it's wide open as well?
I do think it's fairly wide open. I'm still looking to take a pretty tight pitching pool approach. I'm going to be spreading out a various amount of stacks, or I would if I was running 150. You know me, I still like to think about the slate in that lens. I build a player pool that I would be going with first, and then I look at where I want to go for single entry. But I think if I was running 150, I would have a maximum. I'd have 7 players in my pool. There'd be 7 guys I'm considering. Cheapest one being Michael Kopech. Yeah, that would be the least expensive I'd want to go for. Like the cheapest I'd want to go for an SP2. I do love him in tournaments. We're projecting very low ownership for Michael Kopech, so he's probably my favorite cheap tournament pitcher. But I'm with you. I'm going to be keeping it pretty tight for pitchers, and then differentiating its stacks. I talked about this with Keith on the morning grind last night. It's weird that like there's not that many teams for me on this slate that really stand out as a full stack, but there's a lot that really stand out with like 2 to 3 plays that I really love. And so usually on a slate this big, I'm thinking just like all I really care about is the stacks, because there's 12 games, there's 24 teams playing. Somebody's bound to just absolutely go off. But with some teams having some injuries and just the way some of these matchups set up, it really comes down to a few mini stacks I like. So I think I'm going to really try and get overweight on a couple of the stacks that I like for full stacks, like the Dodgers and who else is in Atlanta, of course. As long as that game is going to play, even a little bit of Washington and Minnesota in tournaments to get a little different. So there's going to be a few stacks I'm going to try and really hone in on, but then there's going to be a lot of mini stacks that I'm mixing in with them.
It's funny you said. I wrote in the survey today, and I have a similar thought, because I'm going to be kind of sort of somewhat homer hunting, and like I think my stacks are going to be mostly, and I hand build. They're mostly going to be like 3-3-2, 3-3-1-1, that kind of thing. I don't think I'm going to go like 5-3. Like I might if it happens organically, so be it. But I don't really think that there's any one stack's like, oh my god, I have to get a piece of that. And I like just shooting for the power, shooting for the homers. And then that's sort of my perspective as well. And we'll see. And that's also one way to get kind of a little bit different as far as a mix when it comes to your lineups, just the way it's constructed. I'm curious if you have a thought on that, Tim. Some people, and I get it, they want to force their 5-3s no matter what. They want to force their 4-4s no matter what. And that's the rules, and that's that. I'm more flexible, depending on slate dependent, that kind of thing. And I feel like today's a day where I don't need to force that. Your thoughts as far as just like general lineup construction, as far as 5-3 stacks, 4-4 stacks? Is that something you're forcing? If it happens, sure, that's fine. But I don't think I need to do that.
I guess I kind of disagree a little bit, just because I'm a big believer in forcing in the stacks, but it's also really depends on your contest type. But like if you're playing I think if you're playing like a 150 max type contest, I'm really trying to force in the stack. I really want that correlation. I do understand the point that this is a slate where there's not one like amazing stack that you have to jam in, but I'm still a believer of having those stacks. So I guess that's not the way that I would like to play, really. Like if I'm like playing like the 20 max, like $4 20 max or something like that, I'm being very aggressive with 5-3s, 4-4s, 4-3-1, something like that. That's the way that I think is the best way to play.
See Andy talking about it's kind of interesting. No reason to freak out just yet. We'll have the information at some point, but it is worth noting. Maybe there's something to the Braves and the Red Sox not unleashing a lineup just yet. 2 hours, less than 2 hours, and typically they would be out by now. I don't know if either team is really nursing an injury. I don't think that's the case. So maybe that suggests that they're more likely not to play, but who knows? Stay tuned, and we'll see what Roth has to say. But that is an interesting point. All right.
I would be building some Atlanta stacks just because I think they are the best stack on the board, but just be paying attention, and this situation is going to scare people away. So, I mean, anytime you get a situation where the market sentiment becomes fearful of the best play on the slate, that's a situation that I want to be able to exploit if I'm making, MMEing. So this is a situation that if I'm a tournament player, I'm paying a lot of attention to.
Yeah, and this is like Roth. As soon as we get Roth's next update, we'll kind of have a good idea of what we can expect. And Meansy said he just did update his report, so I'll give another refresh here right now, see if a new one comes in. But this game's also right at 7:10, right? So it's right at the beginning of the slate, and we'll have a good idea. So Roth says, how bad do we want to play? It'll be raining at first pitch and likely for a couple of hours after first pitch. So maybe we start between 9 to 10 p.m., but that's a long way. And them deciding they'd rather play 2 games tomorrow in perfect weather is a very possible outcome. So with no lineups, I'm going to guess that they just postpone this one before walk even starts.
I agree with that.
If they put out a tweet and it says, they put out a zeet, and
what? Is that what we're calling it now?
That's what Elon's calling it.
That's the official term.
I'm only going to use it ironically. Like I'm only going to use it to make fun of them, because it's just like the most ridiculous thing in the world. That like think of how many companies strive for their name to be used as just like a verb, and for it to just be like such common vernacular for things like tweets and their symbol. Everybody knows what it is. And now they're changing it. It's like, what did you even buy this company for? Why didn't you just start your own? But anyways, that is so far besides the point.
Get off your soapbox, TJ.
Yeah, sorry. What were we talking about? Twitter, X, whatever it's called. Obviously, if they give some kind of announcement, like we see the Boston Red Sox tweet, we still want to play this game tonight, but there's going to be a delay due to weather. Then I agree with what Tim said. Get in some of those Atlanta stacks, but we're probably going to know what's what before the slate even starts, because this is one of the first games. And based on Roth's report, I don't think I'm planning on going there.
Are you settled, TJ, as far – let's assume Atlanta game is not playing for whatever reason. If they play, if they go, it's the best stack, and salary's a thing, obviously. It's kind of tricky to make them work. Do you have unless you feel otherwise, Phil, do you have a second favorite stack, like a clear – second, this is the second best team? We'll talk pitching obviously first, but I just want to get this out of the way. We'll talk about the stacks later, but just kind of tease this segment, I guess, because I don't think it's clear. And our consensus rankings, for what it's worth, does have San Diego as like the next team there against Rich Hill, and there's a pretty big gap. They're also kind of pricey too. Is San Diego the clear next team? Do you have a clear team you like, or are you still kind of figuring it out and you're going to figure out during the show?
I got 3. So the Padres, the Padres, the Diamondbacks, and the Dodgers are the 3 teams that I'm considering is my full stack, my main stack for my single entry team.
How about yourself, Tim? Same question.
I'd probably go Arizona. I love the Dodgers quite a bit. And then I think the Cubs are pretty interesting just because their salaries are very affordable.
It's interesting you say Arizona. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I think it's the first I've heard of like Arizona is one of my favorite stacks today. You know what? It's not the first I've heard of it. Dave Potts likes him, which certainly matters. He's the only one that ranked him in our top 5. Myself, Kirkwood, Squirrel Patrol, and Dave Potts. That's a pretty good foursome. Just removing myself, the Kirkwood, Dave Potts, and Squirrel, pretty solid. Those guys know what they're talking about. I'm there too.
Way to make that joke so I didn't have to.
Yeah, well, I know who am I? But 2-time millionaire winner. Squirrel Patrol's been like 90 live finals. Kirkwood is like, I think he owns Yahoo at this point. I've done okay, but I'm out of my league in that conversation for sure. Not that anybody's keeping score, I don't think. But it's interesting that Arizona, Steven Matt's not somebody I think is very good. Of course, that bullpen's pretty rough as well. I assume the roof will be closed there in Arizona because it's like a scorching 120 these days, whatever it is. Arizona was pretty popular yesterday, kind of disappointed. But yeah, they're certainly in the conversation of teams, but not my favorite. And like, again, only one person ranked them in their top 5. Let's talk about pitchers, though. Pitching, I think, is kind of a cluster.
Last thing on Arizona is they definitely make my top 3. But the thing I want to touch on right now is they're another one of those teams that even if I'm not full stacking, I really like mini stacks or one-offs from their team. And one of them is our very first Spidey Bomb. We've reached 50 likes. It's Christian Walker, who is Spidey Bomb number 1 today. You can find him for plus 470 to hit a homer over on Fanduel. And I really like him as a DFS play today as well. So Christian Walker, Spidey Bomb, number 1. And we got almost 300 people watching now. Going to keep going up as the show goes on, so keep hitting that like button because when we get to 100 we got the second, when we get to 150 we got the third, etc. Let's see how many we can get to.
Was Walker like for sure the number 1 guy, or you kind of reshuffled the order and said, you know what, let's segue right into it because we're talking about Arizona? Did it just sort of work out that way perfectly? I feel like I'm kind of surprised Walker was number 1. I'm not. It's a good pick, it's a fine pick, and who am I to doubt Spidey? He's right up there with Kirkwood. And the Juggalo bombs, which he drops on occasion. But was he? I'm just curious. Was he number 1, or you did a little bit on a little shuffling on the fly?
He was going to be the second one originally going into the show until I saw that I actually don't like Cody Bellinger's odds anywhere but the site that I bet him for. So I bet Bellinger at plus 475 to hit a home run. But the best I could find on Scores and Odds outside of my Saskatchewan website is 380, and so I'm not quite as much of a fan of that one, and so I pivoted off of Bellinger, and Christian Walker was the next one on the list.
Yeah, I'm just pulling it up now. I wanted to see what the odds were for Bellinger. That's one of those interesting matchups where Kopech is like the potential cheapie you can roster today. Like, I guess, the pivot away from Cobb, and he's sort of uncomfortable, but we've seen him flash some ceiling games, and the Cubs, not a team you can totally rely on, but they have power theoretically. It's one of those games where I feel like you possibly can consider getting over on both the hitters and the pitcher in different lineups, obviously. And that's just and Chicago's popping in models too, which is kind of sort of somewhat interesting. I have no idea if Kopech's good right now because we see before he went in the IL, he was a total disaster. When he came back, Atlanta just completely annihilated him. He left in the first inning. And maybe he's still dealing with that shoulder. I have no idea. It's just an interesting situation there in Chicago. I don't really know what to do with it, but I think if you're running a ton of lineups, probably get more Cubs in the field and probably get more Kopech in the field. Tim, do you like that thought, or is that a bad thought? What's your thought in general as far as Kopech? I know we'll talk the more viable pitchers in the slate, but since he's in the conversation, what's your take as far as Kopech and also the Cubs?
I'm not going to be hand building into any Kopech tonight. Like I said, I'm making maybe 6 in that 111 tournament. I'm not going to get into any Kopech. I'm going to be building a couple Cub stacks, definitely, just because I think that they're pretty affordable. I'm not convinced that Kopech is healthy, and if he isn't healthy, this is going to be bad news for him. So I'm pretty high on the Cubs today.
Braves lineup just came out, by the way. So there you go. So much of that theory. But It's out. Acuna, Albies, Riley, Olsen, Murphy, Ozuna, Rosario, Arcia, and Harris in its standard. That's basically what I presume that's what we have projected. There you go. So Atlanta's, I don't know if we're playing ball tonight, but if we are, here is our lineup. TJ, did you have a thought as far as Kopech, or do you want to start off and talking about, the biggest names on this slate when it comes to the arms? Corbin Burns. Corbin Burns is back. Is he back? He might be back. Last year, he 30% Ks. This year, about 25, 26%. But the last 2 games, double-digit strikeouts, one of which against the Cincinnati Reds team. Also, he's a pretty big reverse splits guy, strikes out more lefties than righties. I believe it's 5 lefties there they're rolling out for Cincinnati. Then there's Blake Snell, who finally had to pay. He finally had to pay with all of his walks. He kept us kind of like walking that tightrope and just getting away with it. But he had a hell of a run, like 7 or 8 or 9 really, really good games in a row. And finally, he got burned with all his walks. 33% ownership currently on DK for Snell, 37 for Burns. Cobb, not a ton of Ks, but a ton of ground balls, great ballpark, and facing a terrible offense in Oakland, and a good asking price. A pretty solid discount down to 7.6K on DK, getting 27% ownership. Little peculiar that Savali's getting 21%. I understand the matchup against Kansas City, they're horrendous, but Savali, not spectacular. And then a couple interesting tournament guys. Pablo Lopez, if that's correct, if he's just 20%, if he's like well under, and I get it because of salary is a thing, but I would be over the field on Lopez if he's just 20% on DK. One of the best pitchers in the slate. Awesome matchup, too. And I believe he's got Bill Miller as well, the best umpire in all of baseball as far as calling balls and strikes. Did see a fire emoji there in Minnesota. Let's get the old confirmation. Let's do a little refresh.
Well, yeah. Pretty hot there. Pretty hot there, but I don't think that really shouldn't affect anything. I love Lopez for tournaments. His ownership's going to get squeezed by Burns and Snell, and then of course Cobb is going to be the popular cheap guy. So I think that ownership projection is correct, and I really agree with your take that he's a fantastic tournament play. He's going to be more popular on FanDuel. His FanDuel price,
yes,
he's going to be more popular on FanDuel than on DK, but I completely agree with your call on DraftKings.
Don't have a big sample here in the Weather Edge, but we do have the fire emoji for Minnesota. An 8-game sample. The ballpark's not been around forever. 91 degrees. We have a wind blowing in from right field at 11 miles per hour, 64 for those dew point aficionados. But yeah, that does seem a little bit too low. We'll talk about it. TJ, your thoughts as far as the pitchers up top. It is interesting. Like, I know people just don't like to pick on the Reds, but all of a sudden it's like, okay, Corbin Burns is back. He's now a top 3 pitcher in the league like he was last year. And I guess we're picking on Cincinnati. At least the field is at 37%. That's a huge number. And when I wrote him up earlier today, I thought he would be a little less popular than that. But you are getting a discount too. Like if he's legit Corbin Burns, like that we've known of last year, 9-2, no matter who he's facing, is kind of a discount. So I get it. What's your read here, TJ?
Do you want my read of the expensive pitchers or Michael Kopech? Because you asked for my Michael Kopech take, but then went on the full summary of the entire pitchers and Minnesota weather and Bill Miller.
Did you think about your take and then forget your take in the time it took me to? Yeah, I apologize.
I took a quick nap. Gave the chat something to laugh about, and then we're back now. So I'll give both. I'm going to start with the expensive guys, though. I would agree with the Lopez call. I think of this group, he is the top possible tournament option. I was kind of hoping that would be Snell earlier in the day when I was recording the morning grind, just kind of thinking, he's looked pretty terrible lately, or like in his last game, he was back there with all those walks. Maybe people are going to be underweight, but no, that doesn't seem to be the case. And so Lopez, I think, would be my favorite tournament pivot of that crew, but I'm definitely not fading Snell or Burns if I'm running more than one lineup. And if I was doing cash, I would be going probably Burns Cobb. So I'm I agree with all of the guys who are chalky. I would throw in Andrew Abbott just because although he's been lucky, I'm going to wait till the Magic, might as well keep trying to play the Magic until it stops because nobody else is playing him. And that's my thought on Kopech as well, is I agree. Everything like you and Tim were saying about Kopech, I actually agree 100%. And it's why I also really like the Cubs tonight. I think the Cubs are a great stack. Bellinger is one of my favorite one-offs on the entire slate. But my thing with Kopech is we're projecting him for less than 5% ownership. And if we're projecting him for less than 5% ownership, then everybody's sitting there saying, I don't think he's healthy. And so I want to take those shots on tournaments. He's who I'm leaning on going with in my tournament lineup today. Just based on nobody else is going there. He doesn't even really have to do anything that incredible. If he were to outscore Savali or Cobb, you are way ahead of everybody else on the field now. And so he's got the best strikeout upside of those three. Yes, there's a lot of potential danger as well, but I think his upside is just as high, if not higher. And we're seeing 30% Cobb, 20% Savali, and 3% Kopech. And so that's what makes me want to get to a lot of them in tournaments. If I was running 150, I'd probably get 20 to 30%.
Who am I to doubt the projection team? And obviously this stuff is fluid. You know, the closer we get to lock, the more refined it becomes, TJ. But I don't believe that Savali is going to be 21 and that Kopech's just going to be 3%. I think those two are going to. I think Savali's going to go down a little bit and Kopech's going to go up a little bit. I totally believe that Cobb's going to get well more ownership than both those guys. Am I wrong to think that Savali is a little bit too high at 21 and Kopech's a little bit too low at 3?
So the bat has Savali at 17.6 and Kopech at 2.85.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I was going to say, maybe some of those percentage points from Savali are going to go to Kopech, but not so much. Who are they going to, if not those two guys? There's some points to go around. Who gets elevated?
It seems like a guy I don't have in my pool at all that's picking up some ownership is George Kirby. I do really.
I love George Kirby. I was hoping you guys are going to bring him up.
And I like.
If I'd much rather spend the 1,500 over Savali, than I would much rather pay up to get to Kirby than Savali, and then Cobb would be my cash game guy. But finding the $1,100 for Kirby and GPPs, if he's really going to be 12%. He's going to be less than half the ownership of Cobb and Savali. I absolutely love George Kirby in tournaments today.
TJ, you were saying he's out of your pool, unless I misheard you. Did you say Kirby was out of your pool?
Yeah, if I was running 150, maybe I would include him in there, but he's not in consideration for me for my single entry, and I'm actually quite interested in getting to Minnesota.
If this was a democracy, TJ, you're out 2-1. I'm siding with Tim on this one. How is Kirby not in your pool? If you're
I would have Kirby at a 3 max.
Yeah, see, it would one like an MME would be the only situation where I'd be having him. I wouldn't consider him in 1 to 5 because he is facing a mostly left-handed team. He strikes out 20% of lefties, gives up a 201 ISO, gets hit hard 49% of the time. His numbers to lefties aren't good. The not walking anybody is very good. And yes, obviously it's a high strikeout team, but this is also a team with an absolute ton of power. He's going to face 2 righties, and they're Correa and Jeffers. Jeffers has a 202 ISO this year. Correa's got 187. And everybody else he's facing is those lefties where he's getting hit super hard and he's not striking out very many of them. So Julian, Kirilloff, Kepler, even mixing in some Joey Gallo. I really like all these guys today.
Tim, there's some counterpunch in there from TJ. Do you want to retort?
I mean, he's absolutely correct about everything that he said. I just love pitchers that have elite control. I love the efficiency of pitchers. So it's he's kind of like the anti-Blake Snell, right? I don't have to worry about him walking the world. I love that price on DraftKings. Certainly, I don't have anything against what TJ said. And also, you have to consider ownership. So when I can get him at a huge ownership discount over guys like Snell, Burns, Cobb, Savali, I'm going to take shots on that all day. So, I mean, that would just be my argument on that.
To me, this is the number one could go either way tournament spot of the day because the Twins strike out more than anybody else. This lineup has a 28% strikeout rate. It's huge. They also have a ton of really high ISOs and a lot of power in that lineup. And then the other thing you got to take into consideration is Kirby is cheaper than the other aces, and he could potentially put up a very similar score. So it makes him a great tournament pitching option. The Twins, a lot of power, and they're like all sub 3K. Outside of Correa, the most expensive one is Julian at 3-3. So you can play 3, 4, even 5 of these guys, pair them with Tatis, Muncy, and any other like big spend at bats you really like today, as well as getting a Pablo Lopez or something in there in your pitching options. So I don't think it is bad to play Kirby whatsoever. I think both sides of these are high risk, high reward tournament spots. And the one I want to personally get to is the Minnesota side.
I like that call. I like the call of playing Minnesota in tournaments as well. And you said it's like the best kind of play with both sides. I think the Chicago situation is also kind of right there with Kopech and the Cubbies. I mean, that's 1 and 1A. But I think that's a good point. There is a lot of power there, and it is going to be hot there. Now the wind's blowing in from right field, whatever that's worth, which I guess theoretically might suppress lefty power to some extent, but also it's scorching. So maybe they kind of, if nothing else, balance each other out. I would also be cautious. What's the Minnesota lineup? I'm trying to think like who would this is just a projected lineup, right? We don't have an official lineup just yet, I don't believe.
I don't know.
Always curious. Buxton not expected to be in there, paternity leave, so he's going to be out of there. I'm curious to see who cracks it, how many lefties they throw in there, but it's always there is some risk. Julien, a pinch hit risk. He's a defensive risk. They give him the hook, but he's been pretty good and he's still pretty cheap. So even if you get your 3 at bats, and he probably gets 3 at bats versus Kirby because Kirby should stick around for a while and Julien should lead off. Cash games, Tim. As far as DK, you mentioned, I believe I heard you say you're talking about cash games. You're talking about Cobb as an SB2. Have you officially settled? You're still kind of figuring it out. As far as up top, Snell, we could talk about him. Burns, Pablo Lopez. Is it one of those guys paired with Cobb? Is that what we're most likely looking at as far as our cash games tonight on DK?
It is. It's one of those 3 guys paired with Cobb. What I would say is like I would start with Cobb and then make some hitters and then see where you land. That's what I'm doing. Like I'm not gonna force in. I'm not gonna just say Burns and Cobb like that. If that's where you get organically, that's fine. But I'm gonna start with Cobb as my SB2, and then I'm gonna find some hitters that I like. And then if I have the money for Snell, I think that I prefer getting to Snell. But if I don't, then Burns is easily the next best thing.
Snell and cash, though. Like I know this is like we talked about
Yes.
floor and ceilings.
Yes.
And again, he was super consistent for like 9 starts in a row, and he finally got nailed. And a lot of times it's just like, does he get that one guy out when he walks the bases loaded? And he's been doing that.
If I have the $800 and I feel comfortable with my bats, I'm 100% playing Snell. But if I find like a 2v2 or something like that with some better hitters, I will have no hesitation to play 9,200 Corbin Burns.
Raw points, TJ, you have a thought as far as Snell versus Burns? Do you think it's close? Do you have a distinct favorite?
I do think it's pretty close. My favorite would be Snell.
Yeah, and then we've kind of talked about Lopez a couple of times. He's the most expensive on DK at 10-4. So that's going to keep his ownership down a little bit. We're looking at, let me give a refresh because I feel like.
And he'd be my third favorite for raw points, but he is probably my favorite for his ownership.
Let's see. We got a refresh. Oh, I have the bat ownership on. Let me just put the plate IQ stuff for RG. I believe we got a refresh. Yeah, 539. So just happened. Let's see what's changed, if anything, as far as pitchers. 37% Burns, 33 Snell, 27% Cobb, 22 Savali, 19 for Lopez, still Kirby, 11. Verlander, 8. We'll acknowledge his existence. He might get traded, by the way. Could this be his last start for the Mets? The Mets, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure where they are in the standings, but I think there's a chance he might get moved amongst other people. Abbott at 5%. You mentioned him, TJ, and like there's no discount as far as that price at 9.5. I know he's flashed some good strikeouts, but again,
the discount comes with the ownership, not the price.
But you're not. You talk about making one lineup. I mean, maybe you are. You're not.
He won't make one lineup. He won't make my one lineup.
Okay. Like how many lineups you got to make until you say I'm going to play some Abbott? 10, 12?
10.
Okay.
10.
That's what I figure. Is there any interest in? Well, let me ask this because Doug in the chat. Hey, ask your questions. Join the conversation. It's a free-flowing conversation. Much more fun when you guys join it. And also hit that like button because I assume we're closing in on 100 likes. Once we get 100 likes, we get another Spidey bomb. And one of these days, one of these times, Tim, you have to counter. Do we have your taters? Or you have your taters on layaway? Are they good to go? You ready to fire some off? Did you think about this pre-show? The taters? Tim's taters? We have
I
the
don't know.
graphic
I
taters.
thinking about taters.
I don't have one yet. I'll get one though. Don't worry.
Those French fry mashed potatoes. Anybody ever see Sling Blade before? Billy Bob Thornton? Unrecognizable. What a spectacular performance. All right. TJ, Sling Blade? No? Nothing?
No.
Never seen it?
Nope. Haven't heard of it.
You're a cinephile? Never heard of it? Outrageous.
I think I've seen that, but I can't remember. Can't remember it.
You'd remember if you saw it.
Who was it? Who was in it, Dean?
Well, Billy Bob Thornton. It's like basically where he came out of nowhere, like wrote it and directed it, and John Ritter's in it, and some country music guy. I can't think of his name, who like may or may not be an actor now. But the chat will chime in, or IMDb if you're really that interested. We got Bobby in chat. He wants Dean's dongs. All right, but we'll fire off a couple. I got a couple. We'll fire them off when we get to 100 as well. I'll give you one. I'll counter. I'll play along. We made it. Producer Steve made a graphic for you, Tim. I'm pretty sure. You're just going to make his graphic. It's already worthless. Just throw it out. Throw it in the trash. Taters are gone. No longer a thing.
I don't know. I don't produce the show, Dean.
We're 5 likes away for the next Spidey bomb, Dean. I need you to keep the people busy for the next couple minutes because I got something special.
Oh, okay. I thought you had like sneak away for your dog or something like that. How long were you housing the dog, by the way?
This foster for a long time. I've had him since the beginning of May, so it's been they were a litter of 9. There was 9 puppies, and he was the last one of the group to go.
Oh, yeah. It's sad to let him go, but he's going to go to a good place, so it's a good story. But it's really sad to. Oh, was that a dog right there on cue, or is that a chair? What was that sound?
I taken dogs from Puerto Rico from like a Puerto Rican rescue.
Okay.
Yeah. They're like sometimes we get like coconut retrievers and chihuahuas and things like that. Yeah.
You're in Maine though, right? Like that seems like a bit of a distance.
So,
I'm no geography major, but
so they come into a town about 2 hours from us, and then we go pick them up, and we foster them every now and again.
That's great. Yeah. One of these days we got to get ourselves a dog. So they're asking about why Alex Cobb. Why Alex Cobb? Why are we even acknowledging his?
All right, we ready for Spidey Bomb number 2. You can find Nolan Jones for plus 410 on Caesars, and I absolutely love him as a DFS play again today. Nolan Jones is Spidey Bomb number 2, and I'll tell you what. You know why Tim's not ready with the tasty taters?
Did you have tater tots you got from the freezer?
It's because I took them.
Wow,
I took them. They're right here. I got the tasty taters. So keep hitting the like button because it doesn't. It's even if Tim's not ready with the tasty taters, I'm ready with the tasty taters. And so the more likes we get, the more home run calls. We got some more at 150 likes. So keep hitting that like button.
You have taters for Tim. Dare I ask, you have Dean's dongs? So you have something for that as well? A visual for the people? Or maybe you shouldn't get into that.
Not on hand.
Probably save that one for premium.
We had a meeting about this, Dean. Remember? I don't want to have another meeting, Dean.
We're walking the line. I think we're right on the line there. But yeah. Hey, Tim, tell me why. Why are we rostering Cobb as an SB2 today?
It's just matchup based and it's price, right? I mean, that's an extremely low price and a very good matchup. Like, Cobb isn't the best pitcher in the world, but he's got pretty good control, and he's going to be facing Oakland, and he's 7,600. So I think cash games, that's completely fine. I think that there's enough big bats that I don't necessarily want to like double pay up for Burns and Snell. If there are cheap bats that you guys find in cash games that you really want to play, then yeah, you could double barrel in cash. But yeah, like I think that there are premium bats that I want to spend up for in cash games. So I'm going to punt. I'm going to play Cobb as my SB2.
How do you feel about him in tournaments, Cobb? 27%. Hypothetically, I know you're not doing it, but if you were, you can put your MME brain on if you'd like. If you were running out 100 lineups, 150 lineups, you think you should be over the field, on the field as far as Cobb, currently 27%?
So if Savali's really going to be that high owned, that's the guy that I would be underweight. And then so I think that I would at least match the field on Cobb, right? Like because and then I would get overweight on Kirby. That's kind of the stance that I would take. I would be fine playing 25% in Cobb. That wouldn't bother me, even in 150. But it's Savali that I wouldn't want to play into that much ownership.
Jeremy wants to know, did he get a second Spidey bomb? Yes, it was Nolan Jones. It's on the scroll. Just a heads up, you guys aren't aware. Producer Steve all over it on the scroll, letting the people know that Nolan Jones. By the way, just that game in general, I was kind of sort of digging into that game, and two offenses you don't necessarily love. Colorado, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but Chris Bryant's still out of that lineup. CJ Cron's still out of that lineup, so it's a bunch of guys you never really heard of necessarily. But Trevor Williams and Austin Gomber are the two of the three worst pitchers in the slate when it comes to Sierra. Two of the three worst pitchers in the slate when it comes to yielding homers per 9. The ballpark it's not Coors, obviously, but it's also a good hitting ballpark, assuming whether it's good to go. And the other thing is, we always talk about how terrible that Oakland bullpen is. They're the worst bullpen in baseball. Sure they are. But you know who 2 and 3 are? 2 and 3 are Colorado and Washington. So we're the two worst pitchers in the slate, the two worst bullpens in the slate. A lot of cheap hitters. That line has crept up during the day as well. I think 9.5 is last I saw. It was 9 earlier in the day. And I believe they also have an extreme hitters umpire just for fun as well. So typically, TJ, just not a Colorado, Washington, outside of Coors is not necessarily sexy. But for me, that's one of those teams that I'm looking at, or one of those games I'm looking at, both sides. More so Washington, but some Colorado. Jones, like you mentioned. I think that's kind of a sneaky game. I could see like a 7-9 score tonight in Washington, assuming it goes.
Yeah, 100%. If this one plays all the way through, I think it's going to be very strong. For bats, I really like Nolan Jones. I really like Lance Thomas and a couple other guys that are just in really good spots today for bats. I'm a little bit worried about the weather, but Roth is optimistic they're going to play. And so just based on that, I'm good with it. But it does give me pause on playing a one-off from that game, like Nolan Jones.
So some names that I saw being thrown out in chats. I don't know how sober Eric is, but he's asking, is Gomber, or they're talking about playing Gomber? So somebody else saying Gomber's a good play tonight. No. Steve saying no Gomber slander. I mean, look, the numbers are the numbers. He's one of the worst pitchers in the slate, one of the worst pitchers in baseball. Like, that's what it is. You can call it slander if you want. He's not great when compared to his contemporaries. Compared to me and TJ and Tim, he's a spectacular pitcher. He's in the top 1% in the world at his job. But unfortunately, amongst the people that actually matter, he's one of the worst.
I'm glad you brought up that game, Dean, because there's going to be a lot of salary-saving options, and I think that you're completely right that I want to get to some of these Colorado lefties. I love the Washington righties. Like that's definitely, I don't think they're going to pop a lot in optimizers either. So I think this game's great.
Stone Garrett, assuming he doesn't get pinch hit for, you never really know. It's possible. Almost definitely righties are coming out of that bullpen there for Colorado, but he's super, super cheap. Ruiz is interesting. I don't mind Abrams left on left. Gomber hasn't been good against lefties either. But did you guys see Abrams' ownership last night? It was wild. It was like 50%, which is for a guy that's not even a home run hitter, he could steal like 2 or 3 bases and hit like a triple or a double. But that was some craziness for sure. It's not going to be like that tonight, I don't think. But just he
has decent power. I think he's got 10 home runs. Like that's not nothing. That's not, and you have to think like he was buried at the bottom of this lineup for most of the season, so he's going to get more ABs. I think he's got a little bit better power than people give him credit for. I think I'm so glad they finally have moved him up to the leadoff spot, just because I think he's still too cheap.
My camera is blurry. I apologize. I'll try to get that fixed on the fly. Thankfully, my volume is better. My connection is better. My apologies for yesterday. If you guys watched yesterday's show, I don't know what's going on. I think I'm getting a new camera, so I think that's the issue here. But I think it's on its last legs. But maybe we'll do a little white balancing here, try to figure it out on the fly. But you got to see. You got TJ and Tim in a perfectly fine HD, and that's good enough. I guess 2 out of 3. That ain't bad. TJ, other pitchers, you mentioned there's 7 in your potential pool. Did we talk about all of them? You mentioned Abbott in passing. We didn't really give an official Savali take. It's just like he's not great, but Kansas City's probably worse, and he should survive. I guess that's the take.
Yeah, like he's fine. He's a average to above average pitcher. And Kansas City is absolutely terrible. He's got a pretty strong ceiling floor combo. If you went with Savali and Cobb in cash games today, I don't think you'd be that crazy. And so if you add Kirby to my pool, to make it 8, it's Lopez, Snell, Abbott, Burns, Kirby, Cobb, Savali, Kopech. A lot of C's, a lot of K's, a lot of B's in these names. It kind of seems like, but those are the guys that I'm going to be rolling with. Just those 8. I would cut out Kirby, Abbott if I drop that down to like 10-20 lineups probably. And then in my single entry right now, as it stands, my single entry is Cobb and Kopech.
Kirkwood in chat says tread carefully with Savali for what it's worth. Velocity down 4 miles per hour. He's not even like known to have like a big velocity. But again,
I wouldn't have Savali if I was making 150, and I'm certainly not going to have him in my 6-111 teams. I'm not doing it.
I like that call. What about like we're not really talking stacks just yet, but how do you pick on them? How do you take advantage of that? Like Witt and Perez, and then it's a bunch of nonsense. Would you go full stack or maybe like a mini stack here, Tim? I don't mind Witt.
Well, I mean, you could always play Bobby Witt. I think he's a fantastic player. Sal Perez is fine. I don't even know if you necessarily have to exploit the situation with a stack, but like, I just don't think Savali has a ceiling to be like the winning pitcher on the slate is my point. So like, if Savali gets you 14, 13, 12 points, like, is that going to be enough on this huge slate? I doubt it. So it's not like I'm saying I think the Royals are some amazing juggernaut offense, but I don't want to get to any Savali.
Well, if he gets 14 points, right, and he gets you Matt Olson, who homers twice, and gets you Acuna, who puts up 35 points, like, you could sort of do the math that way and justify it that way, but somebody's got to open up. I guess the counter that is like somebody else in the 7K is going to put up like 17, 18. Maybe it's Kopech, who we kind of have a variety of opinions on. It can go both ways. Maybe it's Cobb. I saw somebody asking about Merrill Kelly. I don't know how stretched out he is. We haven't seen him for a while. I think he's had some rehab starts, but I would assume they wouldn't push him too much, and they're asking full price, so Kelly to me is a no-go. Herman versus the Mets, I guess, is kind of sort of somewhat interesting. We've seen him only have ceiling games. That was mostly against Oakland. We've seen him get kicked out of games as well. Polar Bear Alonso's been really struggling since coming back from his injury, for what it's worth. Maybe it's small sample stuff. Maybe it's actually legit. Maybe he just came back earlier than expected, and maybe he shouldn't have. Anybody else here we should mention, TJ, or just want to dive right into the summary as far as pitchers?
No, we can summarize and then make the swap to bats, because I don't really think there's all that much else there. Like, my top 6 are going to be Lopez, Snell, Burns, Cobb, Savali, and Kopech. The next 2 I would add in if I was playing more lineups would be Andrew Abbott and George Kirby. And I think my favorite way to go about things is paying down for some of these cheap guys, even going double cheap. But Cobb is my favorite of the cheap ones, point per dollar. Snell is my favorite from a raw point standpoint. Lopez and Kopech are my 2 favorites for tournaments based on their ownership. And then if I was going with a likely cash pairing, I would probably be going with Burns and Cobb.
Where are we at as far as likes? We closed down on 150 just at TJ. I know Spidey's got a couple ready to go.
We're only at 120. We're still 30 likes away. We need people to take that little mouse, slide it over, hit the like button, watch it on your phone, click hide chat, and then hit the like button. Then you can bring the chat back up. But we got over 400 people watching now, so it should be nice and easy to get up to 150 for a third, and we should even be able to touch 200 for a 4th one.
We got to get at least one tater out of Tim, so we're gonna make that happen.
I'll go Saya Suzuki plus 600 on FanDuel.
Oh, you're going like sports betting wise too. I appreciate that. People like that. The appropriate states.
I go Suzuki plus 600 on FanDuel. That's what I would do.
Trying to see odds wise. What's my boy Weimer at? Because that's who I like. Can we get really good numbers on him? Oh my God! What would you? I mean, I'm framing it now, TJ, and like you're betting this stuff every single day. What would you get? What would you guess Joey Weimer's odds are at home hitting a homer today? And now they're at Caesars and FanDuel. The Caesars number is outrageous. I'll just say that. Ridiculous in a negative sense.
He's usually in the mid 400s, so he's probably somewhere high 300s with his lineup spot.
Yeah, plus 275 on Caesar. Like, get out of town. He's 4-1 on FanDuel.
Wow.
Is he going to be really popular now? He was my guy. And now all of a sudden he jumps up 4 spots and people are going to start playing him. Or I'm curious how popular he's going to be on this slate.
You can't gatekeep Joey Weimer.
I mean, I'm not saying like Acuna's mine. I mean, I understand everybody else is going to take him at some point. But, nobody cares about Joey Weimer's existence really outside of the Weimers. But that's the dong today, by the way. Joey Weimer.
That was like me with Jared Kelenic early in the year. I was just picking him for everything, every game, and nobody ever wanted to play him.
Yeah, well, he's actually been rough of late. And then he went on the IL with he's got some pretty significant injury. So yeah, he certainly had a great start to the season. But I don't want to say you mushed him or anything, TJ. But you got all the homers out of him, and that's it. You squeeze all that juice, and then he's been scuffling and struggling right before he went on the IL. You gave me the summary, Tim, as far as pitchers. I apologize if I did not recall. I think you did, yes? Or if not, by all means, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I would start off without Cobb and cash games, and then I'd pick some bats that you want. And then if you have the $800, I prefer playing Blake Snell over Corbin Burns. But if you don't, then Corbin Burns is easily viable for cash games. I like Cobb in tournaments as well. I like George Kirby a ton, especially if this ownership really holds at like 12%. I think that's a fantastic tournament play. Pablo Lopez would also be in my tournament pool.
Shout out to Matt in the chat. Got a ticket to the DK World Championship last night. He says, thank you, boys. But Matt, you made that lineup all yourself. Congratulations. Good luck there. Take it down there. Congratulations. That must be – where is the live final at? I don't really chase the live finals. You guys know where the live final is this year for DK? I don't know. Are you guys playing those? I feel like we all play like in different worlds.
For FanDuel, it's Philly. I'm not sure about DK.
I feel like that's like a squirrel question, or other people. Christy probably playing those.
I've played like one Q in my entire life. I don't even try to qualify.
Yeah, well, you don't like fun, and like the idea of going, to play for $1 million in San Diego is not fun to you.
I asked my rep once. I said, "Do I actually have to go?" And he said no. And he actually said no. You can set a proxy, and then I was like, "Oh, maybe I will try then." But
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
we had so much fun in the FanDuel one last year. Me, Dre, Squirrel, and Christy were hanging out. We went to guaranteed rates and hit some singles off of the White Sox pitching coaches. We had a fun time. Watch a Wiz Khalifa concert.
How was were you hitting from home plate or like hitting from like center field and they kind of made it easier at homers? How did that work?
It was mound to home plate.
Okay, yeah, and you were more of you're kind of a singles hitter, I suppose. You were like a Luis Arraez.
I was swinging for power and not doing a great job of it. So I was hitting singles in the sense that I was trying to hit it hard and I'd hit it off of the wrong part of the bat and then it would be a quote unquote single, but likely a ground out. Christy was actually hitting really nice singles. Like she hit multiple that were flying over the infield and like landing in the short outfield that were like very, very nice, well hit balls that would have been genuine hits. So it was a good time.
Hey, this is a good question for Tim, and I imagine this is like a fluid question. You're kind of figuring it out, but and I'm not really sure how you're getting. Well, I guess you could prioritize Acuna. Question in chat here, Tim: are we fading Acuna endeavors because of weather and cash? Would you?
I would say my answer right now is yes. I'm sure at the very least we're going to get an alert that says there's a delay at the very least, and then there's no way that I'm playing that game in cash games. So taking that game off the board makes the Burns Snell pairing in cash much easier. But I really like this matchup for Cobb, so I still think that I'm going to keep Cobb as my SP2. But if people, taking that game is going to take a lot of salary off the table. So if you want to go Burns, Snell, and cash, I think it's fine.
Top Shot Picks in chats asking Tyler Scott, starting pitcher for Oakland. Who's that? That's just an opener, I believe, for Waldachuk. I think Waldachuk is still the plan. I believe it was just announced that Scott is starting, but the presumption, to my understanding, is that it's still Waldachuk is going to be the bulk guy, which will be interesting to see how San Fran counters with their lineups. I guess they'll load up the top of the order with lefties with the righty Taylor Scott, and it's always so annoying trying to figure out San Fran, and maybe if they're going to play lefties, they should start them up top because Waldachuk, the long man, is a lefty, but you get some lefty at bats to get Scott up top. No Carroll in this Arizona lineup, by the way. I know you were talking about, was that you, Tim, talking about Arizona? No Corbin Carroll against Mats, left on left. Marte, McCarthy, Gurriel, Walker, Longo, Rivera, Ahmed. I feel like we haven't seen Ahmed in a while. Carson Kelly, and Alec Thomas. How much of a significant hit is that to the Arizona stack for you? Without Corbin Carroll,
I would say it's still viable. That is a pretty big hit to that stack. But I still like them. I still think that Mats is, he's prone to get lit up, and I think that Arizona is going to be. I mean, they're going to be very, very low owned. So I still like them. That might take them out of the top 5 for me, though. I really love Corbin Carroll. I mean, he's such an elite stud. So, man, that's tough. But I still think they're a good play.
There's not a lot to pick from. Does that make Mats the best pitcher 6'3" and under? Again, the options are terrible, and if you're forced to pick somebody, is Mats now the best option amongst Gomber, Hill, Williams, Greinke, Waldachuk? Yeah, I guess he is.
I mean, it's tough. I might say something really bad, but I think maybe Rich Hill is better. But I mean, talk about like that would be a fun bet, though, right? I mean, like that would be.
That's fun. Of all things, that's fun.
It's the meme with the astronauts with the gun on the guy's head behind him. Always has been. Steven Matz always has been the best pitcher on the slate, 6'3" or under. But you shouldn't play any of them.
Yeah, Kopech at 7-1, Savali 7-2, Cobb 7-6. I'm not advocating for Bassett, but like he's a guy that like theoretically can go 7 against the Dodgers if Babbitt is on his side, right? We've seen he's a professional pitcher. And I guess Pivetta maybe can come in and do some things against Atlanta, but that's again not something that I really want.
I wouldn't chase that Pivetta stuff. I mean, the only reason he was so good last time is because he was playing Oakland. Like I wouldn't bother with that. If I was making 150, even if there wasn't rain, like I wouldn't deal with that tonight. That's just my. I would honestly rather play Rich Hill.
By the way, just taking a peek at the Discord channel. If you guys aren't aware, Discord channels are free now. Basically, all the channels are free. I should say there are some still that are specific to premium members, but the MLB channel, Kevin Roth's been talking in there. People are asking Roth about weather, and he's gonna. Again, he's going to be on in 10 minutes or so. If you wanted to know 15 minutes ago his thoughts, he's given them, along with other baseball talking all throughout the day. I know, I think I saw Tim popping in there. I saw TJ in there. I was in there. Alex hanging out there in chat. He's hanging in there in the Discord channel. Tuttle, a lot of the RG people, and just any members, even non-members, just have an RG account. Feel free to jump into the MLB conversation. When the Crunch Time crew comes in, you want to go to the live stream chat channel to ask your questions. That is where Kevin Roth will be prioritizing to ask Dave Potts, 2-time millionaire winner, in about 10, 15 minutes or so, as well as Keith Eyster. Do want to mention, we're going to be talking stacks in a second, but before that, Stat Hero, shout out to Stat Hero, unique fantasy sports platform. You already know it. You love it. They allow users to compete against the house instead of other players in a contest. Their Searing 20 contest for MLB Pick'em, it's still going on. Free-to-play contest and win to start your streak. Keep your streak alive by playing each and every day. Build your streak. Win prizes with consecutive wins, including swag, RG premium, and a cash prize. $20,000 first prize for the Searing 20 contest. Use the promo code GRINDERS, GRINDERS, 50% deposit bonus up to $250. Again, that's GRINDERS, 50% deposit bonus up to $250. Join the action today on Stat Hero. Yes, people there talking about the Discord and chat. Again, you don't have to be premium members. There are some premium channels. There'll be Blenders channel still premium. I think the bat channel is still premium, but for the most part, other sports as well, too, obviously. The most part, most of the channels have been opened up to welcome basically anybody. All right, stacks, consensus value rankings. We've already kind of touched on this. Let's just sort of reiterate. We mentioned Atlanta was number 1. We'll talk about the weather there. Roth will talk about it actually with some real detail, but understand that there is some potential murkiness for Atlanta and Boston. TJ, we have Atlanta, San Diego against Tim's Rich Hill take. Atlanta, San Diego.
No, I'm not going to say
Tim loves Rich Hill tonight.
He loves Hill. Yeah,
no,
I mean, what a terrible take.
Wow.
Dying on that hill.
Thanks, Steve. Bad joke, too. Bad take and bad joke.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Yeah, I mean, it's a C. Maybe a C minus. It wasn't spectacular. I just wanted to put you in a corner. Nobody puts Tim in a corner. Atlanta, San Diego, the Cubs, the Dodgers, Houston, but no Yordan Alvarez. He was supposed to come back soon, but no Yordan just yet. Dave Potts did have Arizona number 2. I'm curious his thoughts without Carroll now. And it's just sporadic, right? It's a bunch of like solo guys because Kirkwood's on Cleveland Island. He's on San Fran Island. Dave's on Texas Island. Some people in China see asking about Texas. And that just sort of reiterates how wide open it is. And myself, I am the only person to rank Milwaukee and Washington. And I'm okay with that. I feel pretty good about that. And I'm going to have those guys in tournaments, assuming Washington is clear when it comes to weather. But TJ, your thoughts? Anything too high, anything too low, anything that's got to get kicked off the board, anything that's got to make an appearance on the board when it comes to our consensus stacks.
Before we get to that, we're at 155 likes, so it's time for Spidey Bomb number 3. We got well over 500 people watching now, so I want to get us up to 200 likes before the Crunch Time crew gets here so I can give out a 4th Spidey Bomb. But this kind of relates to my favorite stacks too, because looking at the projected ownership for this slate, I don't understand why the Dodgers are so low. Even if you swap it to the bat projected ownership, which has them higher because they're projected really well in the bat, there's not a single Dodger player projected for over 10% ownership. On the RG projections, the highest are Mookie Betts and Will Smith at 5.2. Maybe they come in a little higher than that, but it still isn't going to be a lot. So I love the Dodgers as my top tournament stack. And then Spidey Bum number 3 is going to be Freddie Freeman, coming in at sub 5% ownership on DK. And Freddie Freeman, you can get him for plus 450 to hit a home run over on FanDuel. Great odds for him. He's been hitting the ball really well. So Freddie Freeman, Spidey Bum number 3, and keep hitting that like button because I want to give one more 4th one.
Yeah, I gave Weimer earlier as one of the Dean's Dongs. The second one would be teammate Willie Adames. I was almost going to pick one of those Washington guys, but I don't want to get rained out. If I was going to pick somebody in Washington, it was going to be Lane Thomas or Meneses. No, let's stick with Milwaukee. Let's go with Milwaukee. Some of these fly balls are going to turn into homers there. The fly balls that Abbott is allowing. Yeah. So I love Contreras, Adames, and Weimer in that Milwaukee. I mean, love. It's a relative term. I think Abbott can strike out 10 of these guys. It wouldn't be shocking. But for tournaments, I think there's some upside for Milwaukee. Your thoughts here, Tim? Chime in as far as stacks. I know we kind of touched on it throughout the show, but anything that's worth noting, worth adding as far as that list? Do you feel good about it? Anything egregious?
I love the Dodgers. I completely agree with TJ on that. And, I know this has nothing to do with Spidey Bomb, but Freddie Freeman's going to be 3% owned. Like, that's like an unbelievable GPP play for DFS. So I love this take on the Dodgers quite a bit. We have seen, Bassett is incredibly unpredictable. Like, we've seen him like dominate great teams, but we've also seen him get lit up. So like he's a wide range of outcome pitcher. I see no reason why we can't attack him, especially at this like extremely low ownership. So I really like that take on the Dodgers.
Well, he's just got like some of the most aggressive splits in all of baseball this year. Like he's been very good to right-handed bats, and to lefties he's just been getting absolutely smoked. And so this Dodgers lineup, it's mostly left-handed, and the guys that are righties it's Betts, it's Will Smith, it's tough guys. So I really like this Dodgers lineup. It's super low ownership.
According to Steve in chat, pregame guys in Boston said they expect an on-time start, which if that's the case, and I'm not saying it's not the case, Why hasn't Boston released a lineup? What's that? What's the story?
Is it because they traded Kike?
Okay, but like they have to. They're not waiting on a player to come in and take that spot. Like that's.
I know. I'm just
it's a good thought. Yeah, I thought that too. I'm like, no, that can't be it.
I do want to say, like, if I'm an MME player, like I want to get like 2% of Atlanta. Like even if like Roth says,
I think especially if there's no late start.
Right. Or, like I still want to, like they're the best stack on the board. So if this doesn't get PPD pre-lock, I would still get like a tiny bit of exposure.
I'd borderline, if I was running 150 today, I would, and they don't announce a late start, I'd borderline want to get like at least 10% Atlanta.
See, Self-Made in chat says it's sunny right now in Atlanta, which is spectacular. But the thing is, the Braves are in Boston. So, if you live in Atlanta, go out and have a picnic, have a good time, enjoy yourself. But unfortunately, Atlanta is in Boston tonight. So weather-wise, that's what we're concerned with. Taking a quick peek here, and I'm kind of like scrolling, and I can't really just flat out read what Roth is saying. And again, he's going to be on about 5 minutes or so. It appears like he's a little bit less optimistic on Washington, and we know the history of Washington too. So that's a big bummer for me if that game kind of gets washed away, for lack of a better term, because I really like that game for just kind of filling out my lineups for some cheap players. Hopefully we can get a game in there. I think there was a thunderstorm warning or a flash flood warning now. But we'll see how that one turns out. But definitely want that Washington-Colorado game to get in. Several people asked in chat about Texas. Does anybody have a strong take about Texas? No Seager certainly weakens that lineup. We do have Adolis Garcia back today. I do like Semien. I think Semien's a pretty interesting play. France is another one of those reverse splits pitchers in Houston. So like the righty power with the Crawford boxes versus the righty, I do like that. So I think Semien and Garcia are pretty interesting. Young got one yesterday. So I'm not going to discourage it, but it's not my first stack. Anybody have a strong take when it comes to Texas? The floor.
You said what I was going to say. Like France is big time reverse splits, so it's the righties for me. And also, like, Jankowski's pretty cheap. Lowe is pretty cheap. So they're a very, very stackable team. I think that they're a strong offense, and they're not going to come in with a lot of ownership. So I have no issue with it. Like you said, they're probably not top 5 for me, but they're pretty close.
TJ, this is an interesting thought. And like, you're just making one main lineup, and you're not going to get there, I imagine. I'm not telling you to build your lineup. Do what you want. You're an adult. But K-Town's Finest is asking an interesting question, because you talked about Burns a lot today. He's going to be really popular today. Cincinnati, kind of a sexy team, and just like nobody's playing Cincinnati. And what if Burns is just not as spectacular as we've seen the last couple times out? There's a lot of talent on that Cincinnati side. You're locked in for 9. It's still a pretty good ballpark. Just nobody's playing the Reds. The thoughts on Reds in tournaments? It's interesting. I don't make enough. I'm not going to make enough lineups to get there. I can't imagine. But I wouldn't discourage it at the same time. What is your thoughts?
I don't love them as a full stack, but I think somebody like Matt McLean makes for a really strong one-off. And even if you want a mini stack, something like McLean with 2 of Fraley, India, Votto, Steer, something like that, I think that's a totally fine thing to do in tournaments.
Tim, you got anything else to add there?
I never mind if people want to take a risk stacking against a very, very popular pitcher. The only thing I'd say is that the Reds are extremely expensive. So I could see a world where Burns does not do well, but also the Red stack doesn't pay off. So like if they BABIP him to death, they're not going to pay off those salaries. So they're really going to have to hit some home runs and smash the bullpen. So for me, it's not really an option for me.
Red Scout makes an interesting point there as far as Milwaukee. There are several players in Milwaukee that are potential pinch hit risks. I will consult the bat. I think Jones is the biggest one. Jones at 40%, Monasterio in the 30s, Weimer 19%, Perkins 16%. So there's a chance that things can get a little bit squirrely there. But some of these guys, a lot of these guys, it's sort of baked into the asking price. They're really, really cheap. Just be aware of that when making your Milwaukee lineups. but I believe I'm hearing the rumblings now. I see confirmation. I see Keith. I see Dave Potts. I see Kevin Roth. Roth, you're like pitching a perfect game this season, basically. So we're not supposed to talk to you. That's it's a jinx, right? We don't want to jinx you, but weather-wise, it's kind of dicey tonight. The people are going to want it, so we won't keep you too long. We won't keep the people too long, but did want to say hello, and pressure's on without saying that, because again, then it's going to come back to me. It's my fault.
I mean, you are famous for the mush, so it's only right. It's only fair.
We all have we all have our one special thing, right? Liam Neeson had a particular set of skills, and this is my particular set of skill. I am good at mushing people, apparently. TJ, Tim, anything here before we step aside and get out of here? I'm sure the people want to know what Roth has to say weather-wise tonight.
Yeah, I think let's hand it off. We've talked enough.
That was TJ. Oh, Tim, did you want to thank me before we go, or are you good?
Thanks, Dean.
Thank you, Tim. That was Tim. That was TJ. Do it your like button the way out. And TJ, will you be lurking? Will you be hanging out in chat in case we get 200 or 250 as far as the likes? Is Spidey still working overtime?
I will not be. I'm immediately headed to take the foster dog for his last set of needles, and then he's getting adopted by his forever family.
Oh, that's sad. Well, make sure to take a picture and get a hug in there.
Yeah, TJ, we adopted a dog, not adopted. We fostered a dog for 3 days that someone rescued, and like I loved the dog after 3 days. I was like, "Don't take my dog."
Yeah,
it's tough. It makes it easier when like we already have 2 others, and so it's like 3 is just too many for a long extended period of time for us, and so it's bittersweet for sure. But at least it gives that like. Finally, a little more time on my hands.
Yeah, we have 3 others, so that was my 4th, and still, it was like this one's pretty great too.
Yeah.
That was TJ. That was Tim. The FanDuel sponsor, Crunch Time, starting in a second. Do check out the FanDuel single entry series. Not sure if it's filled up just yet, but if it hasn't, check out the FanDuel lobby. Get yourself some added value. The RotoGrinders sponsored FanDuel single entry series. You got Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth. Tell us what's going on weather-wise. Roth, take it away.
Good stuff, as always. Welcome to it, ladies and gents. It is Crunch Time. As Dean mentioned, it's sponsored by FanDuel. Am I lagging? Am I slow? Am I like slow motion mouth? Or is that just on my end?
It looks like your body is way behind your voice. It's kind of fantastic. Yeah.
Well, as long as the voice is coming through.
Yeah, definitely karate chop.
I think you just caught up. You look good now.
Okay. All right. And then I started going real fast. Hopefully, the audio is still coming in clear. My internet will figure things out. We got Dave Potts. We got Cheeseisgood coming in. Hey, if you're new to the show, if you're tuning in, here's the format. We're going to go over some weather. We're going to go over some pitchers. We're going to go over stacks. We're going to go position by position for both FanDuel and DraftKings. Then we're going to take your questions, and we're going to give some home run picks. That sounds like a lot, Cheese.
That's a lot of stuff. I don't know if I'm up for all that, but
yeah, we've only done it every day for the past 4.5 months. All right, well let's say our hellos. Cheese, how are you, man?
I'm good. It's a big old slate. There's a lot. I would be totally fine to get rid of a game just because we have enough.
That's cool. I would be totally fine if you decided you didn't want to play 2 games. We'll talk more about that in a bit. We got Keith Eyster, aka the Iceman, in as well. What up, Ice?
Not too much. Unfortunately for you, I don't think we're going to agree to not play those 2 games. One in particular in Boston is very enticing, especially the Atlanta side of that, the Atlanta side. This slate is kind of changing a lot throughout the day. Last night when I recorded the morning grind, but it's a pretty different slate just because of the weather dynamics, a couple of lineups that have come out. So lots of changing parts here as we lead up to lock.
Okay, very good. Well, we will dive into it. I do have to give credit here to Cheese. We briefly mentioned this yesterday, Cheese. B. Scott in the chat says, as Cardi noted yesterday, Cheese is currently in first place for the NFBC Auction Championship, the high-stakes season-long tournament. Truly a multi-sport athlete. Good job, man.
Thank you. Yeah, pretty much no one cares, but thank you.
Yes. It seems like
if you do, I appreciate you.
All right. Some people care. It seems like good stuff. Let's talk about the weather here. Kind of all day I've been watching the East Coast games, all of them. And I can say with high confidence now that Philly and New York are both fine. And that's good. So that's 2 games that we can check off and say, all right, no issues there. I have a good idea of what will happen with the weather in Boston, but I don't know what they're going to do about it. And I don't exactly know how the weather's going to shake out in Washington. Here are my thoughts. In Washington, there's storms starting to pop upstream. I think there is a pretty decent chance that they have to delay for it at some point. But I think that they're going to start the game. And then I think they might have to delay for storms that pop up. Those storms could last an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. But if they start the game, I feel pretty damn confident that they're going to finish the game. Those storms will not last all night. They'll be gone by 9 o'clock or so. And there's no guarantee that the storms will go over the ballpark. High resolution models say they will, but we don't really know that until they start forming. So I think you just kind of bite that risk in Washington. You just say like, all right, I'm going to take it. I'm going to do it and hope it doesn't hurt you. Does that work?
Yeah, and that's bats only. There's no pitching in that game.
Okay, good. Boss Bro says it's great Washington Nats weather. It's not. Oh, it's great for them to do some stupid stuff. That may be what he's saying, because the Nationals are famous for that. If the Washington late starts, I would be significantly more concerned, but hopefully we don't hear that. In Boston, it's going to rain. They're just in the next like 15 minutes or so, it's going to start to clear out, and they might have 30 minutes, 45 minutes of dry conditions, and then rain moves back in. Maybe it's light enough that they're going to try to play on time and play through rain all night. If they don't, they're going to have to wait till like 9:30 to even start the game. I don't know what their plan is, but in my eyes, it's a risky game. If you want to do it in tournaments, okay, but don't go 70% on that game. That would be not wise. Ice, I'll bring you in here. What's your plan?
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta's the top offense on the slate for me, so I really want to play some of them. Currently, I only have 2 Atlanta stacks in my 20 lineups, and I have some Boston in that lineup, in one of those lineups as well, just making sure it's all condensed. I'm not playing any Atlanta one-offs, but just because they're a team that breaks the slate regularly, I want some exposure. Even if you told me you think there's only a 15% chance it's going to play, I would probably still burn at least one lineup on an Atlanta stack, just in case they play.
Yeah.
Another interesting dynamic here, because Boston is the home team and they are deploying an opener, I feel like they have a massive advantage by that early delay where they could potentially knock out Charlie Morton from Atlanta. I think it behooves them to try to play later on after Morton is already gone, because ideally for them, they would still have Pivetta, who they expect to be the long man, in the chamber. It's just an interesting dynamic that I was personally thinking about. Curious to hear Cheese's thoughts on that.
Like I've always very much wondered like which teams are thinking about these things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's no way every team is sitting there thinking that what should be obviously like that. That makes sense to me. Like what you're saying. I'm not going to try to figure out that, honestly, because I have no idea. But I think what I'm going to say is Atlanta would have been, maybe the chalk or as high owned as any other team. And now you have the best offense in baseball, like unowned.
Yeah.
If you play them and it gets rained out in a tournament, I mean, again, I say this a lot. I'm not joking. Like you are going to lose almost all the time in tournaments anyway. Like, the difference between losing from a rainout and losing just because you lose most times anyway. I mean, whoop-de-doo, like play the team that is the best in baseball with slate winning upside at a fraction of whatever ownership they would have had otherwise.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. We've got somebody, Steve Jones says, I'm stalking the Boston pregame show now. I do want to make sure, like, is there a tarp on the field? So give me some updates there. But I agree, like, this is a risky game, but to just completely avoid the best team, especially if it's coming in at low ownership, seems a little crazy to me. And Ice, you mentioned if I gave it a 15% chance of playing, it's higher than that. I don't know, 50-50. So
another interesting point, Boston has not released a lineup yet. They did just make a trade, so that is probably related. But it's a little scary that they have not even released a lineup yet.
Yeah, and I haven't heard anything from the team about a late start, and sometimes that's them deciding. Like if I were in charge right now, I don't know what the hell I would do. And I'm a meteorologist who's done this for 10 years. Like they're probably trying to figure out what what can we do? What should we do? So we'll see. We'll see if we get any announcements from them and from Washington here over the next 30 minutes. The tarp is on the field, which at this point means a late start is certain, right? There's no way you can pull tarp and warm up in time.
I mean, they'd have to do it like right now
yeah.
basically.
Okay, well, keep us up to date on the tarp, Steve. We appreciate that. Let's dive into the content. I'm not done giving weather updates. 15, 20 minutes from now, we'll kind of run through things again and see if anything's changed, see if we've heard from these teams. But for now, that's where I'm at. Make sure you hit us with a thumbs up. By the way, this is a free show. We're trying to keep it free. The more eyeballs we get, the longer we can keep it free. So make sure you're hitting us with a little thumbs up. It's for us and for you. Geez, let's dive into the slate overview or into pitchers, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, let's just jump into pitchers. We'll kind of overview on the bats when we get there.
And real quick, let me dive in. Someone said we're fading Boston and Cash, right? And I think so. I don't see any reason in a slate this big. Surely there's decent pivots outside.
Oh, yeah. I think it would be nuts to play in Cash, personally.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you. Just making sure.
Okay, pitching. There's a lot of good pitchers. Like, you could reasonably have a very big pool if you wanted to. Mine is pretty small on FanDuel and kind of small-ish on DK. I'll take the sites separately. Although I'll take Blake Snell on his own first as it relates to both sites. Blake Snell always has slate winning upside. Personally, I think he's, popular-ish, as popular as anyone on this slate. And I don't really want to play an expensive pitcher who walks 412 batters out of every 416 that he faces. That's rough math on his last few starts. Like, I have a handful on DK. I have 0 on FanDuel at that salary. I wouldn't yell at you if you wanted to play him. Like, he does have the upside, obviously. I think he's overpriced for his downside compared to the rest of the slate, not like compared to himself and his own salary. But so from there, jumping into the actual pitchers that I'm playing, I like Pablo Lopez and Corbin Burns just straight up better than Snell, like kind of by a lot. And on FanDuel, they're like $1,000 cheaper. And the salary is so tight that like the $300 difference between Lopez and Burns is actually very relevant in a lot of FanDuel lineups for me. So I have mostly Lopez, a little Burns, and then I'm jumping down to Alex Cobb, who will be more popular on DK. And then the few lineups where I really need more salary, I have Michael Kopech and or Steven Matz, which I really don't recommend unless you just desperately need it on FanDuel. So for me, Burns, Lopez, and Cobb is like 90% of my player pool on FanDuel.
Okay, on DK?
DK, all the names I mentioned on DK are certainly viable on FanDuel as well. But the salaries are different enough. Like, Corbin Burns is too cheap. Snell is much cheaper there, which will make him more popular. I think Burns will probably end up being the chalk with Snell secondary, and then Alex Cobb. Like, those three guys will be the most popular. Cobb because of the salary, and he's definitely my favorite cheap guy. I'm fine with Aaron Savali and Michael Kopech as cheap guys as well, and a Steven Matz if you desperately need it. But I'm throwing in, like, George Kirby becomes way more interesting on DK, and he's in my primary pool. A little bit of Verlander and a little bit of Andrew Abbott. So, like, Kirby, Verlander, and Abbott are the three guys that just don't really make it into my FanDuel mix, but are very much in the DK mix for me.
Cheese, I've seen a few people asking about Burns already, about fading him in particular. They're worried about him. Can we stack against him? What are your thoughts there?
You can certainly fade Burns. Stacking against him is kind of weird. I mean, the Reds, you stack any team on any day. Like, we say this all the time. Like, but I think whoever's on before, I think Tim mentioned this at the end of the last show. Like, at the Reds pricing, it's a pretty bizarre stack. Like, there's 23 other teams on this slate. Like, the Reds can score 10 runs and you still don't need them, honestly.
Gotcha.
So I think fading Burns is extremely viable, yes. But you don't have to stack the Reds to fade Burns. It's not like he's a 60% owned pitcher or something.
Right. Okay. Very good. Ice, let's get your thoughts here on how you're attacking this tournament-wise, which is, your specialty.
Yeah, it's all of the same names for me as well. I feel similarly about Snell. He finally had a disappointing start his last time out. He had 7 walks. Even before that, it's not like his control was spectacular. He was walking 3 and 4 guys a start. It's a solid matchup against Pittsburgh, but because there are other options and projecting for similar or lower ownership, I'm completely fine going underweight on Snell. Burns is my favorite option. It seems that he is back, and when he is right, he is a top 3 pitcher in baseball, in my opinion. He's got back-to-back double-digit strikeout games. One of those came against this Cincinnati offense and this version of the Cincinnati offense. It was only 10 days ago, and it was in Great American Ballpark, which is a tougher ballpark than the Brewers' home park. So Burns is the guy I'm looking to go overweight on. I will have as much Pablo Lopez as I can fit. Really good matchup for him against Seattle. George Kirby is a guy that I definitely want to be overweight on. People are concerned about the strikeouts, but he gets a solid strikeout matchup here against Minnesota. They're one of the higher strikeout teams in all of baseball. He did just face them, which is not ideal, but in that start, he struck out 10 of them. I'm not saying to expect that again. Kirby's not this massive strikeout pitcher, but he is an elite control pitcher. He generally pitches pretty deep into games because of that elite control. And if the strikeouts show up because of the matchup, I'm more than happy to accept that. So paying a little bit too much probably for Kirby, but that's keeping the ownership down. I think he has a lot of upside in this matchup with Minnesota. Alex Cobb is the one, like, he is so far ahead of the rest of the cheap guys. I don't love the ownership on him, but I'm just going overweight on him anyway because he has a fantastic matchup against Oakland. They contribute to his strikeout upside as well. Cobb is another guy who is perfectly fine pitching to contact. He has a sinker and a splitter that both generate a ton of ground balls, but strikeouts are there when he wants them. And Oakland is a team that will strike out a ton. So I think Alex Cobb has plenty of upside in this matchup with Oakland. If I'm pivoting in that range, Michael Kopech is the guy. I'm chasing strikeouts there as well. He had a really good early part of the season and then kind of fell off a cliff a little bit here. Had a couple really rough starts in a row, landed on the IL for a little bit, came back and got absolutely shelled. And then finally, his last time out, he was decent. This is a young pitcher with a lot of talent, formerly one of the very top prospects in baseball, big time stuff. And he gets the Cubs, who have plenty of strikeouts in their lineup. So I'm taking chances on Kopech in the cheap range. The only other name I'm even really considering is Domingo Germán, and it's not an ideal spot there in Yankee Stadium against the Mets, but we've seen him flash with big performances before. Mid-range price tag. There's nothing exciting about it, but just in lineups where I need a little differentiation and I can fit him over Kopech, I'm fine with that.
Okay, very good. I want to talk about some of the stacks, Ice, but first, make sure this show, by the way, sponsored by FanDuel. So make sure you're signing up for the FanDuel Sportsbook if you're in a legal sports betting state. Take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. New customers bet $5, get $100 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions do apply. And as Dean mentioned, we've got the RotoGrinders sponsored FanDuel single entry series ongoing. It's $5 entry and $100 entry, I believe, for this week. So make sure you're filling those out. Essentially, if you win a tournament like you normally do, you make money like you normally would, but also at the end of the week, they tally up who has the most points throughout the week, and you get bonus money on top of it. So it's just 100% a tournament you should be entering every single time. So make sure you're doing that. Let's talk some of the stacks. Ice, where are we going?
Yeah, so we've touched on Atlanta quite a bit already. For me, they're the top team on the slate. They have this opener situation from Boston, but then they get presumably Nick Pivetta coming in behind, who is a massive fly ball pitcher in one of the best home run parks in baseball. So Atlanta, keep an eye on that weather. I'm personally adding some more to my pool as we go along here. Just, it's too good of a spot for me to be terribly concerned. So I'm playing some of them regardless. If it gets rained out, then I lose those 5 or 7 or 8 or however many lineups I land on. And that's what it is today. And I move on to tomorrow. Arizona was going to be in this top bucket for me as well, but no Corbin Carroll in this lineup. He was lefty anyway. It does reduce the price of the stack, which is nice. But he's their best hitter and has the most upside for DFS. I was perfectly fine playing him lefty. So that does downgrade them a little bit. They're still right in that top tier for me though. San Diego versus Rich Hill, I think, is an outstanding way. They may be my top team overall now, considering Arizona lineup and Atlanta's weather concerns. And the Dodgers are in this top bucket for sure as well. Chris Bassett is a decent enough pitcher, but he has massive splits, has really struggled with left-handed hitting on the season. And the Dodgers have some really elite left-handed hitters, including Freddie Freeman and Max Muncy. They have some cheap outfielders who hit from the left side. So really like the way the Dodgers stack sets up against Chris Bassett. The Nationals are a way that I'm saving some money with, a little bit of weather risk there as well. So definitely keep that in mind, but not scared of Austin Gomber in the least. They've been better against left-handed pitching this season. So Washington, a great way to save some money. Just be careful of the weather there. Texas is another team that I have a decent amount of. JP France is just kind of an average pitcher, young guy still figuring things out. Texas is one of the best offenses in baseball. The Cubs, if I'm going off the board while I'm playing plenty of Kopech, I think the Cubs make a lot of sense as a stack against him as well. He has control issues, and if he's still dealing with some issues or whatever, takes a step backwards from his last start, I think the Cubs could put up a big number here.
Ice, let's say we get a postponement call with like 5 minutes left in Boston. Like, do you have time, or are you just gonna? Are you just done? Like,
I mean, I will have time to. You know what? What I'm going to do right now is just rerun a script without that game entirely, and then yes, I have time. I'll have my CSV ready. I'll copy and paste them over in that 5 minutes, and we'll be ready to go.
I think that's a good move, because just a reminder, in Boston, the weather tomorrow is perfect, so they could very easily do a doubleheader if that's the way they go. And again, I'm not saying that's a certainty, but I wouldn't be surprised if that comes down here in the next few minutes. So just want to make sure you're ready. Shit. Rockies Nationals delayed due to rain. We just talked about how the late start in Washington would be the one thing that makes me a little bit nervous in that spot. And again, it's one of those delays that, like, it's not a late start for a storm that's on top of them. Like, we're late starting for a storm that is an hour plus probably away. And anytime you're late starting for something that doesn't even arrive for 80 minutes, then the storm moves. Then you got to wait for the storm to clear. Then you got to, like, that just, God, I hate Washington.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I don't trust Washington at all. I think I'm fine just removing those Washington guys. The Cubs are pretty cheap. I'll probably add some more Cubs. San Francisco has some cheap pieces. There are ways to pivot. I don't really need Washington. They were my favorite cheap option, but this is taking me off them a little bit.
Yeah. For what it's just not that many storms. Like, they should be able to play in Washington, but what they should do is just play the damn game and wait until a storm hits. It certainly increases our risk in Washington. If you put me on a spot, are they going to play or not? I still think they will probably play, but that certainly doesn't help things. That is literally the last thing I wanted to see. All right, Cheese, that was fun. How are you, man? You hanging in there?
I mean, I was better a minute ago, but it's fine.
Me too.
I mean, it's not like I have a crazy ton of that game, but yeah, like the Washington cheap bats are just like, you have stacks and they like fit in here and there. I have like little pieces here and there. Like, it would be really hard to switch them all out. So at this point, I think I'm not. It's very annoying.
And someone asked, how's Washington's weather tomorrow? The issue with Washington tomorrow is that I believe their game is already scheduled for 1. Like, they already have an early afternoon game tomorrow. So I'm not sure how that works with a doubleheader. Like, geez, have you seen teams before play a late doubleheader?
Yeah, they could.
Yeah. Cameron says Red Sox starting delayed. Monty says doubleheader. Well, I don't know if this is just fact. Okay, let's talk about the stacks, Cheese, and I will keep up with the weather and let you guys know what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, Keith very much named all the stacks that I love for the most part.
Cheese, like, are we too spread out with as many pitchers as we have and as many stacks?
I'll narrow it down a little. I like everything in those late games. Padres 1, Dodgers 2, Diamondbacks 3, Giants 4, Rangers 5. That's my top 5. I'm not counting Atlanta in my top 5 because I'm just nervous about it. So those are all late games. Yeah, Padres, Dodgers, Giants, Diamondbacks, Rangers. I'll stop there. There's more, but those are the ones I want.
Okay. Let's go around the horn. Just getting note here that the Red Sox game will be delayed, which I honestly think is pretty interesting. This was about the time when I thought that they were going to postpone. Like right now is when I expected to get that postponement announcement. The fact that the announcement is delayed is, I guess, an improvement. I still think it's a risky game regardless. This does not suddenly make it safe, but I guess that's that's better than them announcing the postponement, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, that Boston game is still damn risky. Like, don't go too far.
Is the Boston game probably riskier than a postponement? I mean, what am I even saying? Than the game in Washington?
Than Washington? God,
or
I
you
want to
can't
say
really
yes.
say. If it wasn't Washington, just weather-wise.
Yes. Weather-wise, the Boston game looks much worse to me. Washington probably will see a storm or two, but it will eventually clear. Boston, it's going to rain, like maybe all night. So they better get out there and start playing at some point and just decide to play it in the rain. Okay, we spent too much time on weather. We gotta dive into some position by position. Cheese, what do you like at catcher?
All right. I love Will Smith. He's expensive, but fantastic. I like William Contreras, Salvador Perez. If you're going cheap, my favorite is Bo Naylor. I also like Patrick Bailey quite a bit. I will stop there.
Okay, Ice.
Yeah, William Contreras is a one-off, very interesting against Abbott, guy who's hit lefties very well. Gary Sanchez, one of my favorite plays in a matchup with Rich Hill. Bailey is a San Francisco guy that I'm playing. Sean Murphy and Brave stacks, obviously weather concerns there. I also like Naylor as a cheap guy, and I guess no longer Connor Wong because of the weather.
Okay, first base, please. I'm going to try to get a tweet out and update weather here, but just keep it rolling.
All right, first base. Matt Olson is the top guy here. Obviously, we just keep note of that weather. Wilmer Flores is cheap again. He's facing a lefty again. He's been on quite the tear here recently. So certainly like him to save some money. The Giants always have this pinch hit risk, so keep that in mind as well. I like Josh Naylor against Greinke, who just doesn't strike anybody out. I like Cody Bellinger against Kopech, probably my favorite Cubs bat. He has been tearing the cover off the ball here recently as well. Freddie Freeman is probably the top overall option. Justin Turner has weather concerns, but I don't mind him. Josh Bell is another cheap guy with a good matchup.
Cheese?
Yeah, Freeman is the guy I want if I got money. Kind of mid-tierish below that. I'll throw Goldschmidt in the mix as well, I guess, up with Freeman. So Guerrero, Alonso, Bellinger are all kind of mid-tierish, and I like them a very good bit. Josh Naylor as well is a little cheaper even on DK. Nolan Jones on FanDuel in that Washington game. I like Wilmer Flores. I would play him at another position on FanDuel. I like him on DK as a cheap guy.
Okay, take me to second base.
Second is surprisingly good today. The second base is better than the weather. We have plenty of multi-position guys on FanDuel. You can do a lot of things. You can spend up for Mookie Betts. I love Betts, Semien, and Albies if you're playing that Braves Red Sox game. We got Ryan McMahon second, again, weather. Ha-Seong Kim is my favorite mid-tier guy on both sites. You can play Flores here on FanDuel. There's actually more stuff than that, but that's a lot that I legitimately like. So I'm trying to spend up, but there's a lot of times if you're getting pitching on DK, you just have to go cheap. So I have a little like Michael Massey, just kind of tossed in the mix just because you have to play something cheap somewhere.
Okay. Ice, your thoughts at second?
Betts and Albies at the top, definitely my two favorites. Really like Ha-Seong Kim and his price, assuming he leads off again. Ketel Marte is one of my favorites in that Arizona lineup. As kind of cheaper stuff, Andres Jimenez Like I mentioned, a lot of Cleveland guys already. Don't love them as a full stack, but they could be some cheap replacements for these Washington guys if you're too afraid to play them. Like the Cubs as well, Morel and Horner.
Okay, how about third base?
All right. Jose Ramirez, another Cleveland guy. You got to pay up for him a little bit, but fantastic matchup. Cheese mentioned Ryan McMahon at second. Has third base eligibility as well. Loved Candelario. With weather concerns has me off of Washington now. Austin Riley, if you're good with the weather risk, is a fantastic option. Same goes with Devers. Longoria, if he cracks the lineup for the Giants. Again, be aware of pinch hit risk. Machado at the top range is one of my favorites. And Max Muncy, definitely don't leave him out.
Okay, for what it's worth, Boston did drop their lineup. That just came out, which again, like positive trends, I guess. And maybe they're just going to try to play this game soaked like that. I've seen it happen. I still think it's quite risky though. Cheese, your thoughts at third?
Yeah, it's loaded and fantastic. Everyone that Keith mentioned is great. I guess I would play Jose Ramirez and I'll say Manny Machado as my two favorites, like Muncy and Chapman a bunch. Chapman is cheap on FanDuel. You don't have to go cheap on FanDuel because of that. Like, I don't want to go below 3K there outside of maybe a stack. On DK, some of those guys are super expensive. But like Ryan McMahon at 4,100, and if you want to still play Candelario, those guys are cheap enough to make anything else work. I don't really want to go super cheap below those guys. I'd rather go cheap in the outfield.
Okay. Bring us to shortstop.
Several very good plays you can spend on. Again, on FanDuel, Mookie Betts is at all kinds of positions. I probably like him at shortstop best. But like Bobby Witt, Ha-Seong Kim is also 3-position eligible. But Adames and Bobby Witt are the guys that are like a little too cheap on FanDuel comparatively. Whereas on DK, I like Ha-Seong Kim better there. Dansby Swanson in the mix, although I like Cubs stacks, but I don't really like individual Cubs all that much. And the cheap stuff here is kind of meh. Like you can play like Paul DeYoung or something, but try to get up to like the 4K range.
Ice.
Bo Bichette as a tournament play is somebody that I really like. Urias
I can't believe I didn't say his name. I don't even know what I'm looking at. Bo Bichette is awesome. Carry on.
Yeah, respected pitcher in Urias on the other side, but he hasn't been right here recently. So I definitely don't mind some of these Toronto guys. Casey Schmidt as just like a punt play is fine. He's probably going to hit near the bottom of the lineup. Dansby Swanson, I don't mind that price at all. Missed some time on the injured list, so slight discount there. And then Kim, who we mentioned at second, is fantastic as well.
Okay, that brings us to the outfield, I think.
All right, so spend ups. I think Acuna, if you're good with the weather, is fantastic. Tatis, obviously fantastic. Mookie, probably play him in the infield before the outfield, but he has eligibility here. Unfortunately, no Corbin Carroll, who is one of my favorites here. George Springer, another one of those Blue Jays who historically has hit lefties very well. Stanton as a cheap or as a one-off who has a ton of power. Verlander hasn't been quite the same here recently. Cubs are cheap here. I like Happ. I like Suzuki. Kopech can certainly give up some home runs. Don't mind the Cubs here. Let's see. Anything else cheap? I think that's it.
Cheese, your thoughts in the outfield?
Yeah, for the most part on DK, I'm playing expensive guys and cheap guys. Like the sort of 4K range is not super exciting to me. But like I love the, spend up for Tatis or Betts or Lewis Robert, Springer, Adolis Garcia, Kyle Tucker. I love all those guys. Unfortunately, like some of my favorite cheapies are those Washington guys. I have a lot of Stone Garrett and Alex Call, which I don't know, maybe I'll get off a little bit of them. You can do, so we've got cheap Dodgers and cheap Rangers in the outfield. I like all those guys. Hayward, Peralta, Outman, Jankowski, Tavares, etc. Louis Matos is sitting second for the Giants. I'm just going to the Giants lineup is interesting enough to make me think most of these guys are going to stay in the game, at least for most of the game. It's kind of like they planned for the lefty long reliever. So they're not going to pinch hit for any of these guys right away. So I'm fine just playing that team as is. On FanDuel, you got more 3K type guys like Stanton and Springer kind of jump off the page at their salaries. You can do the Cubs guys as well. Say Suzuki, probably my favorite for the salary. Nolan Jones, if you're okay playing that Washington game.
Okay, very good. Guys, we want to get some home run picks and we want to get your questions. Make sure you're hitting us with those questions, not just in the YouTube, but also in the Discord. We've really been focusing in on the Discord lately. We're going to start there. So sign up, join up for the RotoGrinders Discord as well. Quick weather update to buy you guys some time to get some good home run picks. New York and Philly are 100% okay. Play them in all formats, pitchers, whatever you want. Boston looks really risky. They've announced a late start, but the rain isn't going to end until 9:30. Maybe they're going to play it in light rain. It looks really risky to me. I don't love it. Washington also announced a late start. The rain doesn't even start in Washington for 60 minutes and more, maybe longer. So that's frustrating. I think there's some risk there in Washington as well. I still think they're probably going to play in Washington, but God, I hate when teams do the late start for rain that's 90 minutes away. That really pisses me off. That's it as far as weather goes. Let's do some home run picks. Cheese, what do you got?
I'm still busy removing some Stone Garrett one-offs, but
you're keeping some, right? To be clear.
What's that?
Are you keeping some or are you just
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So home runs, I'm gonna go with Will Smith. I go with any Dodger, but I will go with Will Smith. And I will go with Ha-Seong Kim, and then something cheaper and more random. How do we like Joey Gallo?
Oh, okay. I think, and I don't think I'm making this up, Cheese, but did I see Kim is second in the majors in WAR? He's like 5.1, like with Acuna. What's that?
I don't know, but that sounds right.
Yeah,
the guy is good. Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, I literally didn't know who he was until a few days ago, and now like, oh, apparently he's pretty good at the baseball thing.
He's ninth.
He's okay. Maybe that was.
But still, like the names around him. Yeah, that's like Adolis Garcia, Juan Soto, Ha-Seong Kim.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, Ice. Your thoughts? You got some home run picks for me?
Yeah, I will go Max Muncy. Really like his matchup there. Bassett struggling with lefties. Bo Bichette. And give me Cody Bellinger.
Okay, very good. We're going to get some questions. We got about 10 minutes until lock. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to start things off in the live stream chat of the RG Discord. And let's see what we got here. Scrolling. F Primo says, any interest in a Mets stack? Cheese, you got any Mets?
A little bit. Mostly just kind of like Alonso and maybe Lindor. I have a couple of Mets stacks. Don't love it, but sure.
Okay. We want Dean in the that's the person's username says this is more of a comment than a question, but the people love cheese, so they want Dean and cheese. Can't argue with those things. Yeah, all right.
I mean, I might be we want Dean for all you know.
Yes. You do love Dean. I could see it now. That could be your burner here. All right, let's go to Parabay. Ice, you want Belly. This is FanDuel single entry, probably for the RotoGrinders single entry series. Belly Bogarts or Tatis Suzuki?
Wow, they're both fantastic. I think Tatis is the priority.
Okay. I actually missed this one too. This question's from Tankenstein, and Ice, I'll come right back to you. On FanDuel, who's your SP1? Like, who's the cash play, but also who's your favorite tournament? I was just zoned into radar and didn't catch that.
So Burns would be my favorite pitcher at 10-3. I think the savings down from Snell is worth it. You can make an argument for Pablo Lopez, who's right there as well, but it's slightly a lean to Burns for me. On FanDuel, that ownership number on Pablo Lopez looks outstanding. So give me Burns and cash and Pablo in a tournament.
Okay, Cheese, you got any other thoughts, or you feel similarly?
No, those are them.
Very good. All right, FanDuel cash. Cheese, Tauchman, Springer, Dinger, or Stanton?
I would go Stanton.
Okay. Cheese, is Merrill Kelly on a pitch count? Will you be playing any of him?
He's definitely not playing him. He is probably on a pitch count. Like, he didn't do any rehab starts. He threw a 75 pitch simulated outing. He almost has to be on at least some sort of pitch count. I have definitely not playing him tonight.
Okay. Ice. Sean says FanDuel GPP. Verlander 2% owned. Any interest in a little single entry?
I don't think it's crazy. I don't have any, just because the strikeouts are so far down this season. He also gets a big ballpark downgrade going into Yankee Stadium. So not for me today, but I don't think it's crazy.
Okay. Cleveland stack. Ice. Yay or nay in a GPP?
I don't love the full stack, but a mini stack or even one-offs, I think is an incredible way to save some money. Jose Ramirez is one of the top hitters on the whole slate. So I don't hate the full stack, but I love a mini stack or individual cheap pieces.
Okay. Cheese. Crazy Coop says, any thoughts on a Astros stack DK single entry? This is still like the watered down Astros, right? We still don't have.
Yeah, like they were saying Alvarez was going to come back yesterday, and then today he's still not in there. There's still no Altuve. They're on that list. I named those 5 teams, which would be 6 with the Braves. Like, they're in that next group, totally playable. Like, a Rangers bullpen game is certainly fine to play against. They're not like a primary team for me, but on the board.
Okay. And then Jose says, she's which player on a Houston stack? Do you have, I don't know, there's many.
I mean, you have to play Tucker in there. Like, he's the guy, and that's everything else. Like, you can mix and match every other way around Tucker.
Gotcha. All right. Ice FanDuel GPP. We've got about 6 minutes here. Kirby or Cobb in a FanDuel GPP?
It depends on what the savings gets you here. I'm double checking price. Yeah, Kirby's priced up quite a bit. I think you can do something with that 1,000. So give me Cobb.
Okay. Rocky Raccoon says, Ice, do you think Slim Tim Anderson can hit his first dong dandy of the season tonight, or is he just too gross? Rocky Raccoon gives the best questions. Him aside, a few other members do great. Anyways,
I think the odds would be against him.
Okay,
he certainly could, but
seems likely. All right, NBA.
As bad as he is, and he is the worst. Can we just point out he stole home a couple days ago, so he's still worth something.
Yeah, no, we love him for that. Do you get extra points for stealing home, or just like a stolen?
You get 100 actually.
You should. They should give you like bonus points for that. NBA DFS, Tauchman or Springer? Cheese, FanDuel cash.
Springer.
Ross says, how about a little Boston Atlanta game stack at low ownership? 50% of the time, it works every time. You guys, you're not against it, right? Like,
no.
Yeah, it's risky as hell, but a little bit.
I saw Measy's GIF. It makes me so happy every time Ron Burgundy appears. Like, my mood goes through the roof. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Life is better with a little Ron Burgundy. FanDuel GPP. Any concerns with Kirby just pitching against Minnesota on 7/20? So 5 days ago, I guess he pitched against them.
Yeah, there's not a ton of like studies or anything out there. The one thing that does seem to be dropping start to start is strikeout rate. He struck out 10 in the last time. So like I said, I wouldn't expect that ceiling performance from him, but still very much in play because Minnesota tends to strike out. So I still think it's a fine spot for him.
Okay.
But don't expect 10 strikeouts.
Okay. Cheese aside says, are the Cubs a top 5 stack tonight in FanDuel single entry?
FanDuel single entry. They're right around like 5 or 6.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. FanDuel single entry. Cheese, will you yell at me? This is always fun. If I played Matt Batten in a San Diego stack, he helped me land Manny and Tatis. I got Lopez at pitcher.
I would say I would yell at you, except I did that. So okay.
Nice. Excellent. We don't like it, but we did it. Exactly. Grenade, DK Cash, Ice. hang on. DK Cash, shortstop and second in cash.
DK, that was. Let's see here.
Cheese, do you know these off the top of your head by chance?
I mean, I want Ha-Seong Kim at one of those, and he's available at both. So then it totally depends on your salary needs. Like, ideally, spend up to Betts or Semien and then play Kim at shortstop. But that requires having salary.
Gotcha. All right. Ice DK Cash. We got about 4 minutes until lock, guys. J Ram Suzuki or Machado Benintendi. I've got 2 Indians already, or 2 Guardians already.
The first one.
Okay. CLT says, "Did you know the Bat X hates Ron Burgundy?" I don't believe it.
Of all the problems with the Bat and Derek Carty and projections, not liking Ron Burgundy, like, there is no excuse for that. There is an excuse for almost everything. Yeah. There is no excuse for not liking Ron Burgundy. Like,
in agreement. That
is unbelievable. I feel like he watched the wrong movie and someone told him, "Hey, this is Anchorman," but it wasn't Anchorman at all. It was like Ishtar or something.
3. Yeah. That's he made mistakes there. All right. James says, "Hey, can somebody tell me the the Giants pitch hit risk?" Cheese, you kind of mentioned because of the setup, you're not as concerned as normal for them.
Yeah, like it's way harder to gauge than normal because, like, there's a righty and then a lefty, and like they kind of already set up their lineup for the lefty. I'm still gonna say Austin Slater has pinch hit risk, but I'm not worried about it. Like, I'm assuming this is just their lineup. I mean, theoretically, Yaz or Conforto might come in for Slater at some point. But I don't know.
Okay. Cheese, what do you think about a White Sox stack from Kuya?
It's pretty far down the board. But in 30-ish or so lineups, I would have a White Sox stack.
Okay. Ice, Kopech or German, or that dude in a FanDuel GPP?
Kopech first for me.
Okay.
Kopech or who did you say?
Herman is what he was trying to get out.
I couldn't figure out.
I'm like German, Herman, German. I don't know which is silent. All right. Steve says, "I hand built 21 lineups tonight. Had to pivot mid-show because of the Boston and Washington games. Just wait until they both play, and then you can hate me like everyone else. It'll be a good
Do
time."
we have any new information on Washington? This is what it is.
I haven't seen any. Just an annoying late start that.
Yeah.
While you're looking at that,
Derek is in the chat. Are you totally sure that Anchorman is the movie you watched? Like, is it possible that you watched a different movie? I really hope it was Ishtar. I really do.
I pulled up Giants pinch hit risk in the back just to check, and to Cheese's point, absolutely lower than we're used to seeing on them. We've seen Austin Slater up around 40-50% at times. Just 27% is his number today. Brett Wisely is the highest risk at 31%, and then everybody else is 15 or below.
Okay. Like, this Washington game is going to play. They're just going to play. Like, they're going to, they did the annoying late start thing to avoid a delay in like the 4th inning, and that's okay. That's fine. All right. They're going to play. I have no idea I don't know what the hell they're doing in Boston, honestly. Like, I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're going to play at 10 o'clock. Like, maybe that's their plan in Boston. I don't know. That's it. That's lock. Hey, hit us with a thumbs up. You know this was good content. You got the best sports weatherman in the biz, also the only one, and 2 of the smartest, 2 of the sharpest DFS experts you can get. Hit us with a little thumbs up. It's for us. It's for you as well. We're going to bounce on out of here. We have answered the questions. We've given the plays. So for Cheese, for Ice, and for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes, guys, we appreciate you. We love it. And we will catch you tomorrow. You have been crushed.